Times you hit the bottom.
Yo.
You know, the jar.
Check it.
You have to crack another one. Says, what's real? Player shit.
Yeah. What?
Sometimes your jaw's full, sometimes it runs out. Sometimes in life you gotta be straight up what you're about. I'm about that turp life, yeah, without a doubt.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Rodney Hash podcast. Here I am today with my guest, Zack Simcoe. He is the first ever certified Ganjier within the Ohio, really within all of Ohio. I don't know how to simplify that anymore. But yeah, so I really wanted to talk to him today for quite a few things. A, for that, and then B, he's just an awesome person. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's been in the traditional market as well as like just, you know, auxiliary businesses for a really long time. So he's been around the cannabis industry in the Ohio market even longer than I have. So I really do value your time. I really value you coming here, speaking with all of us today, letting Ohio know what's up with the Ganjier program and a bunch of other cool stuff too. So let me start. Go ahead and introduce yourself, why you kind of decided to do the Ganjier program in the first place.
Yeah, so, you know, I've got a pretty extensive history with cannabis itself. I'm a third-generation grower, and I've been teaching cannabis cultivation at the Cleveland School of Cannabis for about 5 years now. And I've been doing hydroponic retail sales for like 13, 14 years. So it made a lot of sense naturally, you know, as far as the program itself and the content of it. But really where the value of the program lied for me, or laid, however you want to say it, wherever that, you know, that laid for me was really in the network and the access to it. So, you know, access to the council members, you know, them being, you know, so influential and really long-standing within the industry. Like Kevin Jodrey, for example, I remember buying clones from the Wonderland Nursery back in 2014, 2015. Yeah. So, you know, to be able to shake hands and share space with, you know, people like that is, again, where I was getting my money even from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, you know, fast forward to now, when, you know, not home grow, but, you know, legalization.
Legal, because we've had medical for a couple of years, but we just now went rec, and I feel like it's a different tone.
It is. Well, and from the perspective of the Ganjier, you know, the brunt of our utility is coming from, like, our ability to, like, professionally assess cannabis quality. And with the way that the laws are in Ohio, medically speaking, and the medical market specifically speaking, short of buying everyone's product and trying it, there wasn't really any way, you know, to do it, because they can't give away any product. And then even still, you know, as we've learned, sometimes when you're honest in the metric market, it's not a easy way to make friends.
No, it is not. A lot of the metric market prefers you to just like
wave your pom-poms and smile.
Yeah, they like a lot of yes men, and that's just the metric market in general, and that's not Ohio only, that's everywhere. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. It is still a business at the end of the day. No one really wants anyone saying anything bad about their product or anything like that. They just want to hear good things, but that's...
Stop making a bad product.
Yeah. That's not reality.
That was supposed to be a thought, sorry.
I mean, it's true, though. It's very true.
Do better.
It's not to say... All right, let's go right to this. So, like, within the metric market, there's... Ohio looks at Michigan as a failed project. And they see, oh, well, look how low the prices are. Look how there is no standout. Well, that's not true at all. Like, there's Local Grove, Ghost Budsters, Element... there are definite people that are doing really well in that industry, and they're not all just giant big MSOs.
No, in fact, the people that are thriving in the Michigan market are the people that are actually making good cannabis.
Information entropy.
So there is, even without mentioning anybody specific, be it metric or otherwise, those are the people that have stood the test of time, if you will, but and will continue to be around because they have a product that's in demand.
Yeah, because they care about quality, and that's why they need people like the Ganjier program to be able to recognize and identify what like a standard is.
100%.
And that's where, because a lot of people don't really understand what quality is, and that's actually within my own reviews. That's why I try and do them the way I do them, so that way I can educate my audience rather than just being like, yeah, this is an A or this is a B.
I like this one.
Yeah. I like this one.
Yeah, because that's the most challenging part about the systematic assessment protocol is, I mean, and using the app that's provided when you get access to it, it takes a lot of the subjectiveness out of it for you, but it forces you to be less subjective. So, there is no, just because you like gas, that means very little at the end of the day as far as the score if you're answering the questions truthfully.
So it kind of takes away, like, personal preference out of it.
100%. Because, personal bias can obviously swing a lot in a competition setting.
Absolutely.
So, and another thing about, competition setting where the Ganjier is just kind of necessary, is going to be able to, sure, absolutely.
Right. Share some news.
Yeah.
This is legal now.
Yeah. So where the Ganjier program is going to be necessary is not only the quality assessment from, a retail standpoint, obviously, or a consumer standpoint, but they're going to be the ones that help push the boundaries forward because, as I was saying with the competition setting, it's not who grows the best weed because, like, that's a given. Like, all of these are going to be some of the best weed you could find as far as entrants.
Yeah.
But
I would imagine that any entrants or anyone who's
that's
entering competition is going to enter their best.
They're
not going to enter their mids.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, any competition that has, a large amount of entrants, they will do their best to dequalify as many as possible before they even start digging into them.
I mean, Ego Clash, bro, like, a lot of those jars do not make it to the table.
100%.
They even make the joke, like, there's any salt and pepper, like, because, like, if it's grown with salts and they can identify it as such, or if it's, like, just got any type of contaminants or pepper, it's out, it's gone. Like, we don't want to judge it. It's not worth our time.
Yeah, so with that being said, good weed is the baseline expectation, right? So,
yes.
Going to what I was saying, you have to be looking at what's new, what's interesting, what's unique. Yes. So in a competition setting, that is what scores the highest. How I like to explain it to people, or an analogy I like to use is for those that are familiar, like car building, going to car shows, and you'll score the highest in a car show by touching every single panel, customizing every little piece. The one that is the conventionally the most appealing looking has nothing to do with the scoring on a car show, a build off. It has to do with how intricate and how detailed that build is. So if you have everything from your door latches and handles and everything engraved, and then all of these got embroidery or what have you in it, and your headliner's done up, and then you've even got things going on like etched into all of the lenses of all your lights, like those are the things, the little details that are going to get you scoring the highest. So to bring it to my point, the little details such as the care you took as far as drying it, curing it, trimming it, things that are not subjective.
Yeah. Was
Everyone,
it auto trimmed or was it hand trimmed?
And that's not to say that there is one that's worse than the other, but what I will say is if you don't recognize and put forth whatever the best example that you have, regardless of how you prefer to do it, you're not going to win. But having said that, just sticking with the gassiest whatever, the cakiest whatever, the most runtiest cut of runts you've ever runted, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what ends up winning is uniqueness and overall, overall appeal, of course, has a part to play into it, but the uniqueness is where the standard is truly set on scoring.
Okay. I feel like that's really come down to a lot of genetics, which I feel like everyone...
And there's different contests, So
Yes.
you can have ones that are either, say, real rudimentarily, best indica, best sativa, best outdoor, best indoor. Or you're starting to see now much more diverse classifications where best haze, best cheese, best OG.
Yeah.
So now that's where it gets really nuanced, from my perspective, because now I got 15 different OGs and figure out which one is the best. Yeah. I love OGs.
Yeah.
So, whether that's your favorite or not, it's one of those things oh, God.
Definitely not
it's
mine, personally.
Now all of a sudden got way, way harder.
Okay.
But having said that, whoever has, something with OG lineage that is the most crazy combination or unlike OG that's ever been done, those are the ones that are going to stand out. And that's why I say, pay attention to that kind of stuff, because as these classifications get more standardized, it's going to be more and more difficult to stand out, and that's when we're really going to see the advancement of all these different cultivars, like way quicker than you could ever think about before.
Absolutely. I feel like, honestly, with that, I feel like a lot of breeders right now are really focusing on that Z, and I feel like they got to focus less on the Z and just more on like just pulling back to the old school genetics. Mass Medical Strains, I don't know if you've ever seen him online or anything like that. It's Massachusetts Medical Strains. He talks about, like, if you have 13 different crosses, but they all have cookie, you're growing 13 different cookies. You're not growing anything new. Like, I feel like we got to start digging back into, like, those old school genetics. That's actually why I actually got, spoiler alert for anyone who's paying attention, I've got some Durban Poison crosses. It's Durban Sherbert crosses, actually, from Pagoda Seeds. He took Sugar Shack, which is Schwale or Farmhouse Studio Genetics, who's someone who's specifically isolating and trying to breed specifically for hash. That's Schwale. And then Pagoda Seeds, he actually, with this Durban Sherbert, he placed third at Emerald Cup. So that's why that specific thing I'm trying to look for is a Durban Sherbert or a Durban Poison that washes. Because how many rosins do you see that are like Jack Herrera, Durban Poison smelling? Like, it's not often.
No, but having said that, though, too, is traditionally thus far, market has decided what goes and what stays. Not nuance, not curiosity, not passion.
And that's why the Z's stayed.
Bingo. So, having said that, as acceptance just in general gets higher, so will the variety of what you'll start to see, because everyone's preference will then start to come out, not just the typical person that is your cannabis consumer, or your typical cannabis consumer, however you'd like to say that. But with those competitions, whatever it does best at market or whatever sells best in the dispensary rarely is what wins. So for that reason, there are different, not only competitions, but different kind of, I guess, lights to put it into.
That's true.
Because markets will decide and end up deciding that. But
I feel like that's also where it comes down to a lot of, like, is it the chicken or is it the egg? Which one's really deciding?
Well, it's neither. It's the person buying the eggs and the chicken breast that decide which get done first. Because at the end of the day, an easy example is going to be other domesticated plants, right? So when you buy, not excluding heirloom, when you buy a tomato seed, sure, there's like maybe a handful of different varieties of tomato, but
there's like your Roma, your grape, and
they're all still one tomato.
Yeah.
So to your point, is the market ultimately will decide what is best, or sometimes it will be in that same context. Sometimes it's whatever makes the most money, or how they can stretch the most resilient one to do these different things that they want it to do. So though I don't disagree, I just think the natural way of things is going to make it actually much more narrowed. And that's where we have to make sure that...
that's the worry. I feel like that's the worry of a lot of people. That's definitely one of my worries. That's where I see with the Z. It's I feel like because
it's gonna be, everything is going to be Z.
And that's where we're getting to.
Yeah, or
that's why I'm trying to do things like getting those Durbans out there. And because, there's a lot of people that love Durban, but there's also a lot of people who've just never tried Durban. There
are plenty of people who are okay buying, cannabis that's called calm or sleep or happy. So... Having said all that, like, there's always going to be, a market for those, like, run-of-the-mill, 1 of 5s. But
that's true.
It's up to us and going to these events and doing, actually putting effort and support into these other efforts is what's going to keep it around. Because just like craft beer and spirits, prohibition and restrictive laws kind of made to it that, it took about 7 years for any real microbreweries or anything to exist. But we don't have that same hurdle with cannabis. Out the gate, only time will tell, but out the gate, it seems less likely that they're only going to be, your Budweiser and your whatever else their ones are.
Yeah, but I feel like that's really only because of us people really getting involved into it, because a lot of this cannabis stuff is very grassroots efforts.
For sure.
Whereas,
distilling spirits and shit in your own house, like, think about how extremely frowned upon and highly illegal that was for a long time. Up until our lifetime. you know?
What part of the
Distilling and brewing your own spirits.
distillery, yeah.
And
yeah.
especially just the how simple, even in red tape fashion, it is to open up, say, about, I don't know, 500 yards behind us is a microbrewery called Combustion, for example, in a neighborhood. That's also a hop and a skip away from 2 different schools. How hard do you think before our lifetime that was to get something like that, ordinance-wise?
Yeah.
Very, very hard. So, we, fortunately, it may be the exact same thing, but we'll at least have a condensed timeline, I feel.
Hopefully.
Because, yes, it would be very cool to have on a neighborhood street a cafe or a consumption lounge or social club or what have you.
And that's the goal. Honestly, I feel like it's surprising some of the resistance that we've gotten at this point in time, because back in the day it's not like it was then. We have like the internet and everything now, so people can see the results of things way quicker than they could before.
Well, honestly, it opens up a whole new part of the economy between if you make it to where if you sell over X amount of cannabis or bring in X amount of over of cannabis revenue, then you have to get this micro license, and it's super easy. All you just have to do is make sure you do batch testing. And now you have little labs, specialty labs that start popping up all around, every major city, because that's a business now. So it's like, that's true trickle down. Like, that's how you actually get, wealth to actually kind of get distributed with legislation.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily with tighter restrictions. It's accessibility is going to be the key overall.
Yeah. The more places that sign on to it, and the more places that allow it.
And the easier it is to.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. If it's hard to be compliant, no one will be compliant.
That's Ohio. Ohio is arguably, aside from PA, probably the strictest state to operate within.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily mean just cleanliness and shit like that.
Yeah.
We're talking shit that is just
doesn't
hard.
make any sense.
Exactly, redundant.
Why do I
shit.
have to rename this plant to a different name because you think it's appealing to kids? Because three other cultivators were able to, or 3 other processors were able to name this specific product this. Why is it that this? Why am I not allowed to do it? Oh, well, it's appealing to kids. Well, here's 3 other examples that are significantly more appealing to kids.
Well, so, in my opinion, I think a better and more compelling argument than what about them is working against it, or instead proving how it's not. So, maybe it wouldn't have made any difference either, but, I mean, in my mind, what would be a more compelling argument than or look at these guys would be, well, what makes you different then? Why are we wrong? Answer it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's because, what you're comparing it to is, Dig'em Smacks or whatever the heck, and they use that brightly colored frog, and it's always placed at eye level. You can't even access any of our products until you get through this vault door, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
There's much better ways to approach things, issues like this, because there are arguments in some people's minds that you will never win, and it's much easier, instead of trying to convince them that they're wrong, maybe convince them why they're wrong about you. So, it's a lot easier in a general sense to get them to understand why you are above whatever their negative opinion is of the general populace or whatever we're talking about here.
But why this specific name would not be necessarily wrong either way.
Because my thing is nobody likes being told they're wrong in the first place.
But it's that moment of it's just there's so many little things, and it was just one of the examples that they have that dude, it's Ohio's a nightmare, and anyone that operates in the space will tell you that it's just it's a nightmare. Really
good and silly example is if you want to work in a dispensary, you have to get licensed. Well, it's not now, but you had to get licensed with the Board of Pharmacy in order to get licensed with them. Just standard stuff for that license.
No, it's, instead of it being the Board of Pharmacy, it's the Department of Commerce, but you still have to get licensed before you're allowed to be
here's what I was getting at though. So for the onboard training videos, I had to watch fetal alcohol syndrome training videos and shit like that. So, standard stuff, yes, but I also had to get, a food safety handling certificate, which, again, at face value, makes sense. Sure, I guess we handle food sometimes in terms of, gummies and shit like that, but, not
That's
really.
Weird because I didn't have to do that. I mean, we had a bunch of weird ones, but not food safety.
Yep, I have a food safe or whatever the hell it's called.
Jeez,
Safe
the
serve.
certificate.
Safe serve.
Yeah.
So yeah, like redundancies like that, which seem just like unnecessary red tape to like give somebody's nephew or niece a job in one way, shape, or form. You know, like they're head of
That's
that
what they
cute
do.
little program or that little company that we have contracted to do that. So we'll keep them in business. Keep them
Yeah.
out of my hair and my bank account.
I mean, that's a lot of politics in general. So
I
But,
find
yeah.
myself bumping elbows with affluence here as of late, more so than ever before, and there is that kind of attitude towards it. So it's not, and again, it's easier to convince them about you than it is to convince them, that the reality is completely, different. So like, no, just me. So I know it sounds kind of silly, but if you think of it that way, it also makes it like less intimidating to try to convince people, because like, no, just focus on me, and like, if I do it right, you'll come to that conclusion yourself.
Yeah.
Or at least at a minimum, you don't think that way about me. And with that mindset, fuck you, I did everything that I could to show you I was doing everything right. So like, if I still can't change your opinion, whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's like just super difficult to operate in this space.
Yes,
But,
in a nutshell.
yeah. But actually, so going back to something you said just a minute ago, you did say something about like you've been bumping elbows with affluent people. Would you say that recently, like, especially since getting certified by the Ganjier program, would you say that you kind of had any more doors open for you that you wouldn't have had previously?
So, yes and no. So, it's gotten me a lot more attention. So, there was a news story that came out on me on Spectrum News 1 in the Cleveland area. And ever since they did that, my phone has been blown up off the hook, my LinkedIn, all of that shit has been going crazy.
Yeah.
But it seems like everyone, to bring it around, it seems like everyone has some sort of use or value for me or what I could bring to them, but no one wants to give that value back. So,
Within the industry?
yes. So to answer your question, yes, but there are small doors, and I close them. It's fine.
Because they're just not exactly
It's a
the
cross space.
opportunities that you're looking for.
Yeah, or I feel it's undervalued or oversold, or a combination of the two.
But I feel like that's more a market thing than anything, right?
Not always. No, because again, if you grow good cannabis, you're always going to be busy.
Yeah.
So trust me. But having said that, there are other things that I've found that bring me a lot more satisfaction than dispensing cannabis or even working in a cannabis cultivation facility. Just because, I like cultivating cannabis. I don't want to not like cultivating cannabis, and the only way to get me to not like cultivating cannabis and doing it on that large of a scale is to pay me enough to either stop doing it on my own or enough to where I'm like, But ultimately, that's my fear, my concern is that I will no longer enjoy the thing that brought me that put a lot of wind in my sails, to put it simply.
So which part are you saying would be the part that would make you not want to
working in a facility and not getting paid at least enough to deal with the hassle that comes with it, just because, simply put, as much hands-on time I have with the plant, I know what it takes, and it's not that it's difficult or anything like that.
No, but it is a lot of work.
Exactly.
It's definitely a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, it's a lot of attention, and on that kind of scale and with that kind of pressure, I need to be able to wipe my tears with $100 bills.
Not 15 an hour. Or 10 an
no,
hour. Sorry,
exactly.
13.
So
15, maybe 18 if I'm lucky.
Yeah, so
been there for a couple of years. Maybe I'll get 20.
Yeah, and
even though I helped build out 20% of the largest space in the state.
Yeah, I mean, I've done way too much, to be, and I'm getting way too much attention by some of these individuals to believe that anywhere close to what they think is okay is truly okay.
Yeah.
As far as
but they're still recognizing that, hey,
exactly.
I want to know what's up with this guy because he's the guy that he's the credible source of information.
Exactly. So if anything,
okay. So it's still being recognized,
and that's and thank you for you realizing my point, because that's what I was.
It's by a lot of individuals within the market that they don't know a good quality cannabis, and they're trying to come to you with the hopes that, hey, can you come fix my like stuff, and then not pay you what you're worth in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just unacceptable, and I won't perpetuate it. And
that's not to name any names or anything, but no, I know what you mean.
I just won't perpetuate.
I mean, you could just literally look on Indeed and kind of look at who it is. That there's like really no one in the industry is really paying people or what they're worth.
There are a couple, but
but a select
they're
few
not,
of that,
and they're not every position is like that either.
That's what I'm saying.
So
I can think of a handful of places that I can say that I've heard people are happy at and feel like they're paid well and things like that. But it's
I don't know that I've ever heard both in this state. Not to be macabre about it, but you know, just to keep it real, you know, it being aware of it going into
say
it.
Both, but one or the other. I could still say I know people that are either happy or
right,
well,
exactly,
or something along those lines.
So yeah, not to
There's
even
a couple
make it
companies that are better to work for than others.
Sure.
Is what I feel I would get at.
Yeah, I guess mine sounded way too negative. But because more what I mean by it is by saying even all of this is, I want to be truthful to those that you know want to get into the industry, and it's not even that it's inaccessible or that you can't. It's don't. Also, I urge you to not perpetuate it. You know, when it comes to making these decisions, and people are trying to, you know, make you think that $13.50, $14, $15 an hour is normal for backbreaking, you know,
manual
agriculture labor.
Yes, is
absolutely, you know, that's not okay.
Or
like,
even if you're not talking from a cultivation standpoint, usually the companies that are paying even $16, $17 an hour are like, oh, well, other sales positions are like that. Yeah, but the door swings that come in and the knowledge level that's needed to operate efficiently 100%. In a dispensary, and
I would akin it to a pharmacist at the end of the day, as far as
especially on a medical level.
100%.
And I'll be honest, that's one problem that I definitely had with the industry is I felt like I worked in a dispensary, but I don't feel like they cared that I knew. Like, I've had doctors ask me, did you go to med school, having explained to them the endocannabinoid system and how it works and the CB1 receptor and how the CB2 receptor works off the full, like, enchilada, like a nurse just being like, did you go to med school? And being like, no, I just
because it's a specialized thing.
Yeah.
And that's, at the end of the day, it's no different than learning welding, which is a specialized thing, or learning, you know, glass blowing, which is a specialized thing. It's just that. It's
an endocannabinoid specialist, especially.
Well, exactly, and that's what I was getting at, is that's not even like something that truly exists yet. I mean, there are now emerging people, you know, with those sort of accolades that are now gaining the knowledge, you know, to be able to call themselves that, if there is such a title yet.
There is one college that is teaching a good endocannabinoid system course, and it's literally Brown. Which is an Ivy
that's good.
League
Yeah,
college.
I was just about to say, you know, something that has a good medical program or something like that, as far as anatomy and everything goes, that is who would hold the most credibility. I mean, much like, you know, the Ganjier, to kind of bring it back around here, where that's significant is, you know, it's such an emerging industry that it takes a bunch of, you know, legacy market people to create and standardize shit like that. Yeah. So it's ground floor, which is kind of really cool to be a part of. Yeah. But it also, you know, comes with its own set of, like, you know, for example, as you go through the course, you'll see and do and experience and have different resources available to yourself in the program than you know I did, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just
things evolve and things get better.
Exactly.
But I'm sure if you message them and be like, hey, can I have access to some of these tools too, they probably would also.
Depends, because as far as tools like that are available via internet, yes, that's always been a thing. They're very forthright. If they change any classes or anything like that, you even get, you know, blasted out on the email newsletter, hey, there's new changes being made to these courses. That's pretty cool. They are good about that. More what I mean is, you know, now there's dojo, now there is credibility to it, and there have been people that have come in, so it's had time to have the dust settle, and without going there, I couldn't speak on anything else to expect, so I don't know, but it's even just the dojo itself, and it was a former dojo, but it's like a whole campus
facility.
Yeah, it's like a whole campus. Now, I haven't seen it personally, but point being is, like, even just at its base, you know, it'll be a totally different environment in which to learn it in. Okay. So,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
so you're saying essentially that it's kind of just evolved from
right.
where it was at. From
So
when you got it.
It's positive, can also be seen as a negative, but that's like the basis
growth.
of our whole conversation here too, though, is it is all about what you choose to do with it at the end of the day.
Okay.
And so, to kind of touch a little bit on everything we've talked about, it's up to you to decide, what you're okay with. And I think, as individuals, we may not feel like we have a whole lot of say in that. But if we collectively leave these positions, these $13 an hour positions open, how long do you think those positions are going to be open before, they understand that they have to change something?
Well, I mean, just to kind of transition it off from, not even from a metric standpoint, as like the doors that it's opened from you. I've noticed you've been on Baller Blunts a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, honestly, their whole program has changed up quite a bit, the way they grade things and talk about things. Just from your being around them, and I feel like that's honestly, I feel like the two of you are a really good fit for each other. I really do feel like Baller Blunts and Zach, the Ganjier, are actually a really good fit for each other.
Thanks, I do too.
Just because of the way that they're very, that's a passion project. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good dudes.
Yeah, they really are, and I appreciate them. Shout out to Baller Blunts. But yeah, like I remember listening to you on the first episode you were on, which was not this last competition, the genetics one, but the one before that.
The rosin?
Yes, you were talking about like complexity and like what makes things like, when I describe complexity, I describe it as like, so there's the surface layer note, but then there's also like notes in and behind it. Mm-hmm. Like you can notice that creamy up front, but then there's kind of like a gassy, but then there's almost like a fruity undertone, so that's like 3 layers to it. Yep, so that would be complex. Yep. And like you break it down really, really well. And I feel like that's probably in large part because of being able to go through the Ganjier course and then already bringing your previous knowledge, but then organizing it into such a way to where it's like, dude, you fucking kill it on there. Yeah. You really do.
Thanks. Well, I will say that the Ganjier, they've done their part in a sense of making an app that takes a lot of that subjectivity out of it, like I said before. So that has a lot to do with how everything is scored. The interesting thing about the Ganjier and the test to get your certification is, you have to score within a single point of all of the council members' scores, and mind you, these are all out of 100.
Okay.
And there's a total, anyways, and then individually
That's pretty cool.
They changed it, but they were even being more sticklers initially, and you had to get within a point on every single 1 out of 10 category.
Okay.
So it was challenging.
So it's not easy.
No.
It's definitely not an easy thing where you just pay $500 and here's your certificate.
No.
Answer a whole bunch of online questions.
Definitely not. And it's first of all, it's more than that. Second of all, it's if you go into it thinking that, you will go home without a certification. I mean, that's not to
awesome.
say that there aren't people out there that may know their stuff well enough to pass it pretty easily. But what it really is at the end of the day when you get to the testing day is calibration, if you want to think of it like that instead. It is the last thing, because they made sure that you know all there is to know to be considered at this level, which some of it might feel pretty rudimentary as you go through the online portions of it. But
I feel like they need that stuff though, because there's a lot of people that don't know that stuff and would like to be part of it.
100%.
And they may even be starting from square one and really not know.
Or they have different specialties.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There were people there in the testing program, or the testing dates that I did, that came from all walks of life. The commonality obviously was cannabis, but there was a guy, for example, that he was in high-end dining, fine dining.
Okay.
He was a
culinary
waiter.
expert.
Yeah, but he was a waiter, but at Michelin restaurants. So
okay,
you could see very quickly with his customer service, his rapport,
and what he does for a
je ne
living
sais
comes
quoi,
off.
if you will, that absolutely translated. But even he was having that person, he ended up passing just fine. It was all in his head, but he was having like second thoughts about like if he was even in the right spot, because he didn't think that his skills could translate, because he didn't have a whole lot of specialized knowledge on cannabis. But I'll be damned if that dude passed it the first time, though.
I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. You want to know what industry is like hand in hand with cannabis more than any other?
Especially dispensaries, if I know what you're about to say.
I was gonna say culinary.
For sure.
Like,
because even like if you say even just restaurants in general, right, front of house and back of house, because yes, like you think it was dispensaries is front of house.
Yes.
And
yeah, absolutely, I agree. Like, because like the guys, the cooks in the kitchen and stuff like that, a lot of the things that they're doing,
they're screaming at you, cigarette hanging out of their mouth.
Well, that part translates to the grow,
right? Yeah, right.
But I'm talking more from like a lot of the things that we use post processing tech wise. A lot of those stuff came from kitchen stuff. Yeah. A lot of them came from, they're not necessarily, like some of them are chemists. Yeah. Like there's a lot of chemists in post-processing. You got to understand chemistry.
Oh, for sure.
But for that same reason, you got to understand chemistry to be able to do a lot of the food stuff that people do without even realizing it. I mean, like, dude, the amount of chemistry that I know just because of working in a post-processing lab actually kind of surprises me. We had a guy come in when we were at the post-processing lab that the one guy that I was working with, he's like, dude, are you a chemist? And it's like, no. Like, he went to college a little bit, but like, he's not a chemist. But he knows so much chemistry that.
And I don't know, to your point, man, like, yeah, if you just know your shit, like, it won't take long to make your spot. So. Yeah. I just urge that people know their worth when they do have that kind of information, which is kind of the general theme, I guess, with all of this, because it's helped out a lot in bringing that validity, to my history with it. But it's also been pretty empowering on that same front, on being able to also say, well, like, oh, well, it was important enough to recognize that. So, guess what? You're going to pay for that, just like you would a CPR certification
or a consultation
from
an expert, which is what you are. You're an expert at that point. You're a certified Ganjier, the equivalent of a sommelier. You should be able to, so much stuff, and even more so from you being one who's, I mean, we've talked. You were working at a hydro store for a while, like even before. So like, to work in a hydro store, you got to at very least know your just from a baseline. Not even talking just you,
You'd
but
be surprised.
I mean, yeah, but like if someone comes in and is asking for like blocks, like, fuck, do you mean like Legos? Like, at a certain point, like
I understand your meaning. However, don't overestimate.
I mean, that's. I mean,
that
again,
is
we're
still
coming
a lot
back
of people's
to
first jobs too, because those are also places that are notorious for not paying people well.
That's also this industry. That's also this industry.
Yes.
Which is.
So, having said that, and that's not. It's not even saying that it's super rampant or anything like that. Yeah. At least anymore, because there's less stores specifically in Ohio. So everybody, that is still around, you can have a pretty decent level of confidence in. Yeah. And if not the person you're talking to directly, hang around that store long enough, you'll see the person that's worth listening to. Yep. So not to even like swat that down or anything, but I guess
I know what you're saying.
Being realistic, like, no, I've heard some really weird advice given to people in hydro stores too. So you hope that,
fair
yes,
enough.
But
very valid.
How I like to teach my classes, for example, is I tell people to.
Which actually, let's elaborate on that.
Yeah.
When you say teach your classes, you're teaching at Cleveland School of Cannabis, right?
Correct. Yeah. So
what courses do you teach?
Well, so I've right now all I teach is the cannabis cultivation. I was teaching intro to horticulture and the commercial cultivation operations class, but doing it online, I just do the one that I like the best. So I do that, and how I like to explain to people what I want them to take my information and all the information after that they seek out. Think of it like watching the Food Network, right? So what I mean by that is there are two ways to watch the Food Network. You can watch what they're doing and make sure, like a recipe, and make sure that not only do you pay attention to the recipe that they're posting up, the graphic or whatever, but pay attention to, is she using a convection oven? Are they, what kind of pans are they using? Pay attention to all the different details, because that is what's going to make that recipe come out exactly how they did it. You'll need to know all the different variables. Whereas if you're watching that Food Network, it's the second way, which is for inspiration. Instead of thinking of it like, oh, they're doing this, this, and this, think of, well, I never thought to put the dill in that. Like, what? That is a much better way to receive this information, because it gives you the confidence to kind of approach things with grace, at least for yourself, you know. Like, I did everything right, you know, so dumb. Like, that kind of thing, mindset can be totally avoided if you go into it knowing, like, well, I thought I was going to do good. You know, like, how can you go wrong? Yeah. So, especially for, you know, those that are starting out with small grows, there's much less, you know, financial risk involved, because it still can get up there pretty quickly. But over the years, I've sold so many people's first and last, you know, setup in the same setup. So it has a lot to do with how people approach it, and it's easy to get discouraged if you consider, you know, everything you're doing as a recipe. So you can for sure use that as a baseline, but, you know, again, if you don't know the elevation that they cook that shit at, if you don't know all those little stupid details that really make the difference on how that cake or that whatever the fuck we're talking about, you know, turns out, it's never going to turn out that way. Otherwise, by sheer fucking luck. Happenstance, if you will. You know, so. Yeah. Same thing with cannabis. So hopefully, you know, those watching understood my analogy with that. But inspiration, you know, that's what I, you know, hopefully people watch the classes as, because so many different ways to do everything.
So you're saying, like, I feel like just another way to kind of like say what you're saying you're teaching one way to grow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only way to
Correct.
grow.
Yeah, so what I try to do is be as open-ended and give as many real-world examples as possible to open up that train of thought. Because, yes, some people will ask me what I do. It happens every single time. They always want me to give them, you know, pointers and details and tell them what I'm using and this, that, and the third. And it's not that I mind giving that information. It's that they have to have that understanding that just because it works in my situation.
Your situation doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in
even
theirs, because they may have a different particular thing
dude,
that's going on in their
so
humidity.
Many different things that's different that like, yes, we could go on about it.
Yeah, there's be any variable.
To further my point, even me, the same grower, can take the same plants, the same cuts, the same equipment, and say put it in a different house, a different basement, a different facility, whatever we're talking about, and I'll still have to do it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Now we might be talking about the at the end of the day, the difference of, like, you know, a tune, if you will. You know, just
well, that's the difference in, like, when you get really down to the nitty gritty, what like a phenotype is, because the environment can make a difference in it.
For sure. Yeah, and
it could be
even
the
further,
exact same
chemotype,
cut, the exact same
chemovar.
Yeah.
Chemovars are even extrapolating on what you're talking about there. Like, those can be so influenced by slight environmental differences.
Yeah.
That's why they practically don't exist.
Yeah.
Practically.
Because it's hard. I mean, like, you could take the essence of it, boil it down, and then kind of mimic it on, like, a botanical scale. Like, I think Abstracts it is, the terp company that's doing it.
I feel like that's not quite the same thing, though.
That's not. And that's exactly it. Especially because there's still so many other little... I mean, we're still finding out that another recent discovery was we couldn't figure out what the cheese terpene was. Do you know what the cheese... It's literally, like, it's the actual, like... amino acid or whatever it is, the acid, it's basically like a terpene that's in the cheese, that is the same thing.
It's like a byproduct of, like, the process of cheese.
Yeah, which is why it's so similar to it, is because it's the same scent molecule.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I don't know, it's real easy to take it in any direction you want, but I guess, like I said, I just implore people to kind of find their own way. And that doesn't mean that it's completely different than what plenty of other people are doing.
Okay.
Personally, I love this plant, so whenever I give people advice and tell them, you know, what's going on with it and this, that, and the third, I do it because I love the plant. It's got far less to do with me wanting to help out the person I'm giving the information to. I love this plant. It's taken care of me and my family for a long time. So out of respect to it, I'm going to tell people how it likes to be cared for. Maybe expand their thought process on how they approach not only cannabis, but it's one thing that I love about it, especially with growing or just cannabis as a whole. It is very eye-opening to all of the other processes, you know, along with life. So
I could say that about a lot of things, and that's why I feel like with jiu-jitsu I could say that in a lot of ways. A lot of things translate to how you carry yourself, to how you behave, how...
That's a great analogy, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that moment of, like, I feel like people really just need to, no matter what they do at the end of the day, is just live your life, you know, like, whether it be jiu-jitsu or cannabis or a mix of, or you're a photographer, or, I mean, I know a lot of...
I like Cadillacs.
Yeah, this dude knows so, like, the reason we're sitting in this is because this dude knows so much about cars. I actually
some weed for this limo a couple years ago, really.
Yeah, legally, which is awesome because in the state of Ohio you can legally do that. You can barter. That is just throwing that out there for fun facts for the internet. No matter how you want to do things, wink, wink, nod, nod. But yeah, so yeah, like I actually met you at the Industry Leaders Unite event, and as a favor to a friend, you like kind of like had your thing there in a separate area to be able to like smoke it out for people, because not everyone can. Yep. You don't necessarily want to smoke out a building and then like have hash bash cup where it's like you're like literally just not able to pass a piss test if you don't smoke weed and you need to pass a piss test, but you want to have a great time at an event. Yeah, it's a really cool way to be able to do that, and it's just a homie thing, and it's awesome. So that's why I actually, on top of that, the original reason I wanted to do that mixed with it is because I actually started off all of my videos in my car. Just because I needed to get off the ground somehow. Like, yeah, we could have easily done it at my place or a studio or something like that, but I wanted to do it here because it's just cool to talk about, like, cool to be in. Like, bro, we're in a fucking Ganjier limo. Like, the reason that we circled the car and everything else and zoomed in on the license plate is because this is his limo. He's the Ganjier of Ohio. Like, bro, that is awesome. And it's because you've lived life and you've done things, and no matter what your passion is, you explore it. And it doesn't just have to be one thing. Right. Like, we both, like, know so much about cannabis and terps and the cultivars and, like, so many things within it that we could just go on and on and on for days about it. Growing, like, ways of doing it. But, like, we still have other things that, like, I could literally teach you tons of courses on jiu-jitsu, and you've already taught me so many things about lemos in the last couple hours, man. It's cool. Like, so I feel like those are the things that make this community really cool. Yeah. Is because all of us have this passion project and has brought it to the forefront.
It's the unifier.
Yeah. And that's, again, circling it back to the Ganjier. I feel like that's the echelon of people, which is like, dude, it's cool to just to be here with you.
Thanks,
so, man. And not even just because of the certification, because of who you are, but it's awesome, man. It really is. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, likewise, brother. No, I'm happy to have chats like this, because it wasn't that long ago where, hell, I was facing a lot of, my freedom was at risk for a mandatory minimum of 8 years just for this very thing we're talking about. So to be able in that same decade, not only chat it out, but we're cool. Like, everything is fine. Life is totally different now, and in a much better way. You know, the level of acceptance for, what I've decided to be passionate about has gone up. I'm night and day. So because of that, I'm grateful. So, in a nutshell, too, I'm super happy to even be able to have the chance for any of this to exist.
I agree. I totally feel that, man. I mean, like, it's something I realized a couple of years ago, when I realized that a lot of the stuff with the UFC, the UFC wasn't able to, the UFC was not able to be hosted in a large amount of states because of the fact of the way the laws were written. They literally physically could not host an event where people had to punch each other. There was a couple of the really early UFCs where people actually had to, open hand slap each other. They couldn't close hand punch each other because of the way the laws were written. It was silly because,
it'd be assault.
Yeah.
Just by the way that it was written up.
And, you could, the whole organization could face prosecution. It was a big deal. And, if you look at it, in that way, the two things that I do as, my biggest passions are, cannabis and martial arts and fighting. And, bro, I would be a big felon 20, 30, 40 years ago if I was in the exact same spot that I'm at, which I'm super grateful that we're at where we're at. I'm really grateful Ohio went rec. I'm not so sure I'm grateful about the rescheduling. Rescheduling thing's weird. I feel like that one's kind of a double-edged sword for me because of the fact of, yeah, it's cool that they're recognizing that it should not be a Schedule 1 drug, but I feel like if you're going to recognize it, then deschedule it. My biggest worry is, so historically speaking, what's happened is the Cole Memorandum happened under the Obama administration, which is why for most of our lifetime, yours, mine, and majority of yours too, man, same of, like, a lot of our lifetime, the federal government has not been involved in the state's programs for cannabis. However, during the Trump administration, Jeff Sessions, you remember good people don't smoke marijuana guy, they rescinded that. So the Cole Memorandum is no longer a thing. But no one has officially touched it from a federal level standpoint. Like, they've done a couple, like, oh yeah, we're going to release some prisoners, and release like 10 federal prisoners. But, like, generally speaking, the federal government hasn't really gotten involved in cannabis since this rescheduling thing. And there's just so many little things here that my biggest fear is this is the first time the federal government is getting involved in cannabis. Does this mean they're going to start interfering with state stuff again?
It very well could, but I think it just more opens up the doors for big players that have been itching to get into it in the first place to finally get in.
CVS and Rite Aid and other pharmaceutical companies, like the big guys. Because what it does is it allows for people that have a pharmaceutical grade license to dispense and manufacture Schedule 3 drugs can then manufacture and dispense cannabis, which is things like CVS and Rite Aid. And I mean, like, let's look at Florida when they had the opioid epidemic, how many pharmacies and things like that just are kind of like, I don't necessarily want to continue selling opioids, but I want to continue making money off drugs. How do I do it? Well, cannabis is a really big cash crop. I mean, I guess I could, like, vertically operate that now from a pharmaceutical standpoint because I do have this
all
license
the money
and that
in,
license.
it makes it a lot easier to lobby and snuff out any potential competitors. Because how hard is it to open up a pharmacy?
Yes. And, I mean, circling back to what we were talking about with the cannabis cultivars and certain ones being, like, the market kind of steering things and all that stuff, like, that's again where the worry comes in. I mean, there's companies out there, speaking of chemovars, that have tried to patent chemovars, which is, as we were talking about, kind of lightweight laughable because it's not the same. We don't even have the full understanding of what it is. So, like, how are you supposed to do that necessarily? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the fear, and that might be the reality, but only time will truly tell. So, as I said before, it's going to take us just kind of not allowing it.
Yeah, which is what we've been doing. We've been pretty active, but I feel like a lot of people...
I just mean as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. My worry, too, is, like, I feel like once some people see that we've hit rec, they feel like, oh, we've hit the finish line and we did it, but this is very much so not the finish line. We have a very long way to go. I mean, like, if you even just look at what they tried doing with the rec bill, with, what was it, Senate Bill 86, and then I don't remember what the other one is, where they tried giving all the money to the police foundations and police unions. And
a slap in the face with, like, a flaccid dick, a little one.
Yeah, like, in so many ways that they tried doing it, it's...
Yeah, we got Eskimo kissed by the Peter, the Attorney General of town.
Yeah. I mean, you all have seen my Instagram stuff, so you've seen what they said about it early on, and that's why, but everyone came up, they all spoke out, and that's why they heard us, is because we were all loud. I mean, like, my senator in my district knows my name now. Yep. We follow each other on Instagram now.
That's how you do it. Well, and also, when these positions are opened up, especially unopposed, fucking run for office. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah,
the worst that happens is your name's on the ballot, you get to fucking tell your mom you fucking tried.
That's true. And I mean, it's true, though.
Like, there's no shame in fucking making an attempt. Even if you have no money to campaign or anything, I'm going to tell you right now, the amount of times I would vote for somebody else just because it's not that dickhead, or whichever one we're talking about.
Oh, I know a couple of them. I lived in Madison, Ohio for a while, and I would not be surprised. I'm actually pretty sure the memorandum or moratorium that they have on cannabis is still in existence, meaning, like, they don't want it there at all. And there are cities still in Ohio. I mean, dude, there's a lot of Ohio that will not allow it.
Yep, and I don't know, personally I think that that's like an infringement upon one's freedoms, because there's not any other industry where they really restrict shit like that.
Yeah, you can have a microbrew pretty much anywhere.
In a neighborhood. You can have your kids in a bar.
Yeah, if you're there with them. Yeah.
We won't even get me started on that one, bud, because that is weird to me.
Yeah. You know, you can technically legally give your child alcohol. So what can happen is, like, at a bar, if, like, let's say they're, like, 13, 14 years old,
it's still
legally
about
speaking,
the adult, but you can also still, in that same breath and same action, get in trouble for, while providing alcohol to a minor.
but it's your child, so it's different.
It's in your house is the big thing. It's the bar. You mentioned the bar.
I don't know. Even well, not necessarily a bar. Let's say, for example, it's Red Robin's here at the thing, and, like, if you want to, you are legally allowed. Like,
No.
that is your child.
That's public. You can't. They can't serve that. You can give that to your child, and that's where it gets murky. But
That's not the way it was put to me, but I'm also not a lawyer, so I don't know.
there's plenty of people.
Well, the point is
It's
it's
all
still
discretionary. Point being, but my whole issue is, like, I've been at a bar which is 21 and up, and have been asked by people because they brought their newborn to a bar to put my cannabis out because it's going near their baby. And I says, you know what else is near your baby? The beer on your breath. So go to Red Robin, to your point, if you want to have a beer and bring your baby.
I mean,
not
they
the
can.
bar.
I will play devil's advocate in this one and
There
say
is
they
no
can.
devil's advocate.
They can say secondhand smoke, but even then, it's a little.
You're
bit,
in a bar outside on a patio.
Outside on a patio is different because
There's
open air.
That's my thing. Is it's a baby at a bar. You're never going to win that argument. There is no.
No, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's good.
You are a devil's
definitely
advocate
not.
at that point, because
That-
as
I
a
am not
person
saying
that was
that one.
raised by a homeless single mother for the first three years of my life, we lived out of an '89 Honda CRV, and I used to have to go with her everywhere, including when she worked at the bar. And the amount of times that I, had seen my mom in tears because of the fucking way that people were talking to her about me being there, it strikes a chord. So I personally think that it's an excuse that people use to be able to combine their interests, right? Which that isn't the harmful thing. It's a different issue that I think is at play, right? Like the fact that there isn't enough time in the day, to do all of those things separately.
You're saying
that's
you
a
can't
different
be
issue.
bringing that and saying that, like, that it's okay to do it around alcohol and not be around cannabis. Like, they
Right.
should be about the same.
Exactly.
And
yes.
I agree.
I'm not a what about them kind of guy. I'm more like a, hey, you're at a bar. This is what comes with being in a 21 and up environment.
Yes.
So I don't need to correct my behavior as an adult in an adult environment for you being the dumb non-adult for bringing a non-adult into an adult space. So, like,
Don't bring children to adult spaces.
bingo. Because, like, if it's a bar, again, it's 21 and up.
Stupid shit
Is that
happens.
fucking baby's idea? Exactly. What happens if there's a bar fight? Like, there's
Dude,
no...
I am the most mellow dude ever, especially... Well, let me rephrase this. Post-jujitsu, post-cannabis
I
and
know
jujitsu,
I can kill you now.
I am the most mellow dude ever. I have been in 2 bar fights in the last couple of years.
That's one of those things.
It's
There's so
stupid.
many
It's
different
like-
things that can happen
yeah.
at a bar.
It's-
Even not even like going down that rabbit hole, but just kind of inferring, like, even beyond violence, there are so many other fucked up things that can happen when you bring toddlers and children and babies to a fucking bar.
Yup.
Even something stupid like just dropping it because you're half fucking drunk. So,
Yeah.
or like, if it's one of those same kind of bars where if it's okay to bring your kid, well, it's probably okay to bring your dog.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
Didn't mean to get on this tangent of it with
Yeah.
it, but I strive for that level of acceptance.
Yeah,
My
I
issue
agree.
is less.
Well, we as Ohioans voted to regulate it like alcohol.
I was just about to say, what
so
was
that's
it called?
the thing.
So
and that's
yeah.
where, again, I feel like Ohio's failing in a lot of ways because I feel like Ohio wants to regulate it like it's still a Schedule 1 drug and that they're scared of it
Or
in a lot
even
of
worse,
ways.
like it's a Schedule 3. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, we're talking Schedule 3, so it's the same thing as a Percocet,
Codeine.
right?
Yeah. So it's... I don't know, man. That part's frustrating. But,
To say the least.
like, I mean, the way that we look at alcohol, perception-wise, is the way that we should be looking at cannabis from Ohio standpoint. And that's what I feel like we voted in that's why we voted on this specific law. And with alcohol comes social lounges, or with there's microbreweries, farmers markets essentially in cannabis.
Oh yeah, farmers markets are. That is something that I actually was going to say earlier. Is like
the farmers market's been popping off. They've been
even at its
they're not
simplest
necessarily like THCA flower vending cannabis vendors, but the amount of like home grow equipment, the amount of clones and really good clones.
So personally, what I want is to be able, because it is a plant at the end of the day, I would love to be able to go to a bona fide farmer's market once every week or what have you, on the weekends or whatever, and be able to sell my cannabis, my freshly grown, flowers, my hibiscus, my microgreens, all of the things that grow using the same equipment and the same resources.
Yep.
My point. So,
hint, hint, wink, wink.
I want to be able to go and sell my things just at a farmer's market, just as you can with any other thing that you can grow in your backyard or basement.
Yes, I agree.
So even to take it further, because I'm total if you give a mouse a cookie, if you look at it that way, but like from the get-go, my thought is it shouldn't even be compared to alcohol.
No, I agree. You ever heard regulate it like tomatoes?
Yeah, there we go.
I was actually more of the opinion of regulate it like tomatoes.
100%.
But I understand that because of the perception and everything else that's going on.
There's generations of people that you're going to have such a hard time convincing. Yeah, just like my point earlier.
Exactly. And to be honest, like the people that are in office are generally those generations that grew up with reefer madness.
Hell yeah.
Hey, there's a hint, hint, wink, wink.
Well, and they're also, ones that even if they did it, they would never say that because they're too engorged in the idea of whatever image other people have of them in their minds.
Exactly. I mean, do you really think Obama didn't inhale?
I think that, so like I know a lot of people. Everyone's got a little bit of something in their past. Some people are boring. Some people are fucking boring. I will say that.
But I mean, he admitted to smoking and he just said he didn't inhale.
We all know what happens at college.
That's my point.
Yeah, like
that's my point. So it's like, but he was scared to say that he inhaled because of the perception of it that just comes along with it, and it's sad. But
it is sad, and hopefully that'll change. And I find myself blessed to be in a position where I don't really bear that same weight.
I agree.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
I agree.
Everyone's situation is different, so sometimes it's not as easy as don't allow it to get to you. But like,
yeah, when people use it in a way of like, if you say something the wrong way, we're going to use this evidence against you, and because of office and stuff like that.
Yeah, or
even
this family and things like that. Relationships.
Look at what they're doing to Kennedy and his family, dragging it out. Dude,
or just even. Reputation in general, right? So like there's always that fear of reputation, which that's an ego thing, and that's a totally different tangent that we won't go on. But that is what is great about cannabis too is if we do start looking at it in the right way and having others or convincing others to start changing the way they look at it, it is an incredible unifier, because I'm sure you can attest to this. How many people, do you know that don't smoke, but if they're going out, would rather be around their stoner friends
than their drunk friends?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, do you know how many cops would rather? And again, I do. The guy that's the head instructor at my jiu-jitsu school that I'm ranked out of is a higher ranking cop, and like every single time, I can guarantee every single one of those police officers that are in that studio, and there's a lot of them, would all rather deal with a stoner than a drunk.
Yeah, there's no stone tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely people that freak out, but that's a different thing.
Well, and that's often a setting thing. Like, that's anxiety that's intensified by the use of cannabis, or like an overdose, if you will.
That's actually a big theory of mine. Is that actually like a lot of the high that's associated with cannabis is like overdosing your endocannabinoid system, that CB1 receptor.
Yeah. No. So I do think that I'm a huge proponent of like, yes, cannabis overdose exists. Fatal cannabis overdose
does not exist. Agreed. And that's exactly it. Because I feel like when people associate the word overdose, they think of
dying.
death.
Yeah, or
Because
near
they
it.
think the reason that cannabis won't kill you, by the way, is because there's your CB1, CB2 receptors and all that good stuff. There's all kinds of like areas outside of that are receptors, like the TRVP receptor for pain, that cannabis does associate with, but none of them are in the brainstem. None of them affect your breathing control or like heart rate and functionality and things like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a plateau of these levels too within your receptors. Like there's
Yeah.
only so much they could take before it's just like offshot into those systems. Correct? Is that what you were getting at, or am I thinking incorrectly? Because it
Elaborate a little bit more. Hold
so
on.
like it'll hit certain levels as far as the cannabinoids, the saturation of them, and once it plateaus and hits its saturation point, if you will,
Yes.
it just kind of offshoots it elsewhere into like other receptors to where like
Just goes to like fatty deposits and shit.
right.
Really.
Okay, so yeah, maybe not receptors is the right way to think about
But
it.
I know what
it
you're
just
saying.
kind of
Yeah. It's just kind of like it goes elsewhere. It's not
Yes.
like it's gonna like.
it doesn't accumulate and make it worse.
Yeah.
You know,
like
it's-
to a certain point, and then once it gets to that point, yeah, it's kind of like it's not.
It plateaus.
Yeah. You might. The worst thing that'll happen to someone is, like, they basically fall asleep. They green out. And I'm sure you've seen people green out too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Bro, you ever seen someone puke from hitting a bong?
Yeah,
for the first
I mean,
time?
yes, and even personally, like with edibles, the first time I had an infused drink, I didn't read the
Drinks are
packaging
different.
correctly. Oh god,
Drinks hit so much different.
for
'cause
sure. And
They're
my dumbass,
nano-emulsified.
yeah, and I didn't read it. It was you're supposed to take 1 ounce shots. I didn't realize it was 100 ounce per shot. I thought it was 100 ounce for the whole fucking drink,
Oh, shit.
dude.
How many milligrams is that total thing?
32,000. So.
Slept for like a day.
Yeah, I did. I split it with my at the time partner. So in fairness, I might have had 16,000 plus
But
whatever
still.
joints and shit I was smoking.
Yeah, but still.
But yeah, no, we fell asleep for like 16 or so hours straight.
Yeah.
So
Great nap.
kinda, it was really disorienting.
Yeah, you
Like,
wake up
yeah.
and you're still kind of high.
Well, not even that. I felt rejuvenated, but I woke up and it was still like light. You know what I mean? I fell asleep, it was light. Woke up, it was like oh, that was neat. And then it was really confusing because it was like
The next
hours
day.
before. Oh, and that's the worst part is like it was AM, not PM. You know, so it was.
Just throwing you
Oh,
off like
it was.
jet lag.
Yeah, it was a completely
Candle
off.
lag.
Well, because it's funny you say that. It happened in California. I was already jet lagged.
That makes it even worse.
My phone, it didn't have service on it where I was at, and it was still on East time. So I'm telling you, dude, I woke up out of that coma like soap opera worthy, fucking confused, you know,
like,
like
what is
like,
today?
Yeah.
What week is it?
Oh,
Who's the
dude.
president?
Yeah, like this time and
Bush?
these dates don't make fucking sense, you know. So it was, yeah. It was
Did I
fucking-
time travel?
Yeah, it was fucking me up, man. So I kept just second guessing, like, wait, we leave tomorrow? We just got here, you know what I mean? So it was bad. To your point, sorry to cut you off about
no, you're good.
you know, the different receptors there, but so there is no like fatal overdose. The worst that can happen is you could freak yourself out and make you think that it's gonna get worse.
And yeah.
And it
Your
never-
anxiety
it
gets
doesn't.
worse, but that's just because you freak yourself out more,
Bingo.
and the sudden setting gets
Bingo.
worse.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, yeah, anything beyond that, you know, can be more attributed to that panic attack. You
Yeah.
know, if you're
And
freaking
panic
out-
attacks are real, man.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
Even without cannabis, I've had a panic attack before, and dude, like, it feels like you're, like, about to die. Like, you think you're having a heart attack, like, you can't breathe.
Well, you can't
You feel
explain nothing really. You can't really even think clearly.
It's hard to talk.
I mean, because, yeah, exactly. From outside looking in, you're rambling and you're looking super fucking erratic, like you got rabies or something. So,
He
you
said,
know,
like, you got rabies or something.
seriously, you look all manic, like, dude, you good? Yeah, like, it can be very, like, seeing someone
Legit.
have that can make you have one.
Sorry.
Right, yeah, right. Trigger warning. But yeah, it can make you have one. It's so
Yeah.
intense. So, for those of you that haven't had a true panic attack, bless your heart. For those
Thank
of you
God.
that have,
I don't wish
just
it
say
on
you're
you.
gonna die. Then
I don't wish it on you.
oh, I thought you said you're gonna die. Like, well, when you have your first one, that feeling you're feeling, it's gonna get worse. Like,
No,
Yeah.
it's not a DMT trip.
oh,
You're not
shit,
gonna
that's
die.
funny. Oh,
But if you do
gosh.
that, you're gonna die.
Right? No, that's
And then be
funny.
born again, and then life's great.
Then you'll be fine. No,
Talk
that's
to some
fine.
aliens.
Yeah.
like true Joe Rogan fashion, talking about teams.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so bringing it back to the Ganjier thing, I know you're more of a flower guy. I'm more of a rosin guy. Concentrates in general. I do want to talk to you a little bit about that, actually. We'll talk about that after. For right now, what I do want to try and do is a buddy of mine, Sam Solvenless, out of Ohio. He gave me to give this to you. This is a GMO rosin.
Oh, my favorite.
So I figured, crack it and kind of tell us what you think from a Ganjier standpoint. How would you grade something like this, for example? Like, what type of things, like, does the packaging matter to you?
There's a laundry list of things. So packaging actually means zero. So packaging in a contest or a competition setting, it isn't even scored. It's negligible. The only way, I guess, in a roundabout way that you could say the packaging counts is the integrity of its storage.
Okay.
So in theory there, if you give it to us in a Ziploc bag, for example, it's probably going to get beat up. It's probably not going to be the same, level of quality or integrity that you handed it to us in.
Yeah.
Or even
just where Myrons are king.
Right. And whereas, jars and things like that, as long as it's sealed correctly, stored in proper temperatures in terms of concentrates,
most of them
storage integrity is way more important. You are graded on that, however.
Okay.
So, in a roundabout way, yes, but not really. Right?
Okay.
So, not directly. But that means, clear up until the point where it is submitted in the officiant's hands, whatever that may look like. You, as the applicant, are responsible for making sure that the quality and integrity is of the utmost quality.
Okay.
Or of the utmost, of your ability, really.
Yes.
So that never stops until it leaves your hands physically. Because, as I'm sure you're very aware, you can have a lot of these terpenes volatilize off just by, having it in your hand or your pocket, for example. If, you're driving it to submit it and you got them in your fucking pocket.
Yeah, and it's just sitting there in your body heat, and it's just
exactly.
Even though you're running at 90-some degrees, that's still enough to...
There's quite a bit of terpenes you lose by that point.
Absolutely.
And now some of them may be nuanced to the point where most wouldn't notice. But, again, we're talking about a competition.
Yeah. And that's, again, where I feel like the Ganjier stands out, because I know, again, hint, hint, wink, nod, nod, I know I personally, if I ever throw a competition, the Ganjiers are who I'm going to turn to judge said competition, because I feel like, again, this is a standard.
Absolutely.
These are the types of doors that you guys should be, going into. Again, like Baller Blunts, it's a phenomenal opportunity, but not everyone's going to have that opportunity, but because of proving that you know what you know, you deserve to be in that position.
I will say that is well, I guess I kind of touched on it before. That's a way under, I didn't expect it to have that kind of value, because yes, I mean, not really knowing these people from Adam, but getting to know them and introduce them on basically a voucher on character, more or less.
Yeah.
And
they're
then
good dudes.
Yeah, well, and because they when I was introduced to them, there wasn't any oh, hey, he's gonna be the judge or blah blah blah. It was nothing like that. It was I wanted to talk to them to try to get in their ear about it, but I also, just me personally, I try to be respectful and not want to oh, because I have this piece of paper, I deserve to be in everything. That's not how I ever want to come off with it.
No.
But it is extremely validating, because you give me enough time and I'll show it plenty of other different ways.
Yeah.
But
and real always recognize real, regardless
exactly.
if you have the degree or not.
Exactly.
But it does make it
it gives me a chance to open my mouth.
You basically have someone like Nikka T, Swami, Mila Hash, these legendary people in the industry, basically going hey, I vouch for this guy, which is pretty freaking cool, actually. So, what's the first thing you look for when you're looking at hash rosin?
Well, so I mean, first things first, obviously the appearance. So you're gonna go with appearance, and then aroma comes.
Look.
Yeah, aroma comes after that, kind of in the same notion there.
Look and smell.
And like I said, storage integrity has a lot to do with it. So from a judging standpoint, start to feel around the jar. See what kind of temperatures it's at. Because if anything, I'll start to ask, depending on the setting, how is this stored prior to, because if it's not the applicant's fault, it's not the applicant's fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so because I know that it is weighted, I try to take that stuff into consideration to accurately score it. So it's not to say that I have a necessarily set standard on, well, if it's warm, then I give it a 0.3 pass.
Right.
There's no standard like that.
Yeah.
But
and I'll be straight up with how I transported it. I actually stopped on the way down here, grabbed it from him. It has been in my pocket, so as we talked about, that is a little bit affected, but...
Well, and having said that, we're talking, a work shift as far as the amount of time that's been going on, rather than days, weeks.
Yes.
Who knows?
Which does also make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And also because of that temperature, it makes a difference on like the consistency of it. Not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It just it makes it easy to start telling the integrity of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So beyond that, though, I start to look for impurities. Again, first thing you do is look for any DQs. So if there's any sort of
Salt,
impurities, if it doesn't feel right or smell right, if it smells off, or like propellant or anything like that, there's DQ. Beyond that, though, then of course I'll take it out with a tool and really start playing around with it, like check the viscosity of it and all the ways, taking into consideration the method in which it was created.
Use this one. This one's the dab tool.
Sure. Taking into consideration the method in which it's created, I kind of then determine like how well they actually did it, how much effort. It was clear that they put effort in. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
How hard they tried. Damn it. Oh yeah, and agitating that just boom comes right out.
Yeah.
So
and so this is the GMO. So what kind of notes do you get off that?
Oh yeah, funk, just straight funk. That's like farts, like skunk farts.
All right.
I mean, and it's got some little citrus, like little tropical fruitiness on the end there. Maybe even like, I don't know, some like strawberry petals. Like not even the strawberry, like the fruit, like the essence of.
It's been like 2 weeks since I had a jar of it, so I'm over here like...
It's like Schweppes strawberry. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like a funky strawberry.
But the strawberry is super, super minute.
Yeah.
And that's not super common.
But it's more the funkin' in front.
Yeah, and it's not super common for, these. So that even could be an example of, some other terpenes volatilize. So these are the ones that are now more pronounced, along with, the typical ones.
Yeah, definitely.
But beyond that, then I, of course... start to load it up. Now, again, based upon what I see as far as my visual inspection, I'll start taking photos of it, both in micro and in macro. I'll even take some extra photos of that are illustrative of its its consistency. If it smears, I'll smear it. If it's kind of pulls, stringy, like
if it's workable
cheese or
to
something.
donuts, or if it's more like just kind of soupy.
Exactly.
Or
That's the kind of stuff that I notate. And again, depending on the method of extraction determines what kind of grace it gets in each category.
And I agree. I 100% agree. Same thing with, again, as I'm doing all my reviews, I definitely take that heavily into consideration. Dab it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
I turned into a caveman now.
It's a hash rosin, man. It just does it to you.
Right. You show me GMO. Yeah. It's now like an instinctual need.
Yeah. Which, fun fact, you were actually telling me, didn't you say that GMO is like the first rosin that you had actually tried was a GMO?
Yep.
So this is one of those things that
nostalgia.
Yeah. Which, I'll be completely honest, I didn't know that when Swami Select gave it to me. Swami didn't know that. This is just one of those, absolutely just keep in mind, guys, everything happens for a reason. That is, straight up facts, man.
Serendipity at play.
Yeah. No matter what you want to call it, it's everything happens for a reason. That should be warming up for you. Sweet. Yeah. But yeah, so as I said, you're more of a flower guy. So what's your favorite genetics that you've worked with? What's a specific something that if you're ooh, it's got that in it, I gotta try it?
So here lately, I've been really liking those berry terps. So anything that has the strawberry or anything like that, for sure, I'm about.
Okay, like that strawberry cough, Kyle Kushland, old school stuff. But even then, I know that you were saying earlier that there was some strawberry, something that you had that was like, it was just so different, even from that one.
Yes, I mean, it was just, it was straight up like candy. I mean, it was so...
Well, it's like the sugar cane by Sought After, man. It just straight up like Pez. Yeah, see, it's good, right? Ohio guys do it well. And I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of rosin guys here. So, specifically just talking Ohio guys. Shout out to Bleeding Terps, Dexter Solventless, Heartland Solventless. I feel like there's another guy that I'm missing, and Psalm Solventless. All your Ohioans, y'all are awesome. Y'all got terps. If y'all want me to do a review on any of your products, I would love to do it.
Well, that's about all the time that I got. I got some other shit that I have to start getting on. I keep getting texts about more shit I have to drown.
I understand, man.
Oof.
So I guess we'll make that the end. Before we go, let me just ask, so now at this point, what do you look for real quick?
Smoothness, right? So, the first one was real smooth. The second one was not, because I was a glutton and I'm also a masochist. So, interesting combination. I kicked my own ass with it, but that wasn't the fault of the hash.
No, this is a big dab.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. That was me. But... obviously, how much taste comes through, how long it lingers on the palate. Now, truth be told, my cotton mouth is hellacious. So
I've been sitting here talking for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
plus,
but
so
it's not getting its fair day in court as far as mouthfeel and shit like that.
Yeah.
But mouthfeel is for sure something to look for. Overall, like how full-bodied or not the smoke is. Those are all little nuanced things that really make a difference. Now, in terms of concentrates, there's only a couple things that are asked on like the flower one that don't really apply for the concentrates. But short of a couple little things that specifically escape me right this moment, the assessment protocol is the same.
Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, man. Again, really appreciate you.
Oh yeah, likewise. Man. Oh, that's delicious.
Right?
Well done, Sam.
Yeah. Shout out again, Psalm Solventless.
Oh, can you make that into like a cologne or something? Maybe like
GMO.
like an air freshener or something. I want that on my. I want essence of that so I can put it on my dice. I want
steam distilled terps and made into. Don't do it, by the way. Oh, one more question before we go.
Yes.
What is your opinion on CRC?
CRC.
Color remediation chromatography.
What are you talking, like, to get rid of fucking powdery mildew?
No, getting rid of color and concentrates. If you don't know what it is, it's not that big a deal.
No, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so
I'm aware of chromatography, but like...
Yeah, so it's chromatography. They're basically... So you know how BHO is made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you take for the rest of you guys, so you take the weed, you put them in a bunch of columns. Then you take some type of hydrocarbon, usually butane, or propane, usually butane, run it over top of the weed, and then you run it into another column that's got a heated bottom, and then boils off all the butane, and then you collect your butane hash rosin, or butane hash resin, butane hash oil, BHO. Dear God.
Right.
It's not rosin. So,
You
but what
wouldn't hear the end of
CRCing is they take it, and instead of running into that collector column, they run it into a filtered media column, and then basically like run it through that before running it into their collection column.
So they're doing that to just basically remove the pigment out, basically like a filter. Okay,
filtering out a lot of that, and there's also things that are like...
so maybe that's just jargon I haven't heard, but like with
it's
that...
organic bleaching, a lot of it.
So would an example of that be, say, like the cakes of diatomaceous earth and a butyl like that, those kind of things?
They use things like that, yes.
Okay.
DE is definitely one of the less bad ones. DE is definitely, like, there's a bunch of varying grades of filter media.
Sure.
My personal issue with it is the pH balance. As a grower, you know your pH is important. We wouldn't want to drink water that's like super acidic. To to a certain extent. Like pop is obviously a little bit acidic, but it's like there's a varying level of where that falls. Certain filter media change the pH of the THC, sometimes so much so that it can offset it and make it into Delta 8. Because the way you make Delta 8 is you take crude CBD and you wash it with an acid that basically modifies the molecule over to the Delta 8 molecule.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware of how that works. So I guess I never heard of it called like that.
But yeah.
It really just, I guess my opinion on it is I won't dare say that I have one, but I see where the appeal of it is, but I don't know where the risks lie to be able to be on either side of the fence.
Well,
Because, I like me some good light-colored rosin.
well,
But
you can't use it for rosin. You can only use it for resin.
okay, well, that makes sense. Well, then, okay, yeah. Well, then I guess I understand it less, because it does sound like cheating. If you suck as an extractor and you're pulling that much pigment, through your material, then maybe you should cool down your fucking material.
Either cool it down or not use such bad material. I think it started off originally as people running like trim run stuff and trying to like
Sure, well,
change the color of it, but
even still,
it's still trim run
I
stuff.
feel like if you, well, because there's no way that that's like live. There's no way that that's
It's
been
not.
cooled, to the point where it would have the same effect as doing it live.
But there's still people that do it to live products too, which is kind of fucked to me. There's people in Ohio. There's one person in Ohio that does it.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's frustrating.
I guess, again, don't know enough to have an opinion, but my thoughts as to like why I don't see any reason why you would do that unless you were trying to hide something. Because if you just like are filtering it for the sake of purity and it just like happens to pull some of the pigment out, fine. But like,
couldn't you just run it through a 1 micron screen?
that's what
By
I was just
itself,
about, that's what I
without
was just about to
the-
say. Like, 'cause at the end of the day, like,
They make 2 micron and 1 micron filters for those without a CRC column.
so again, I don't know the jargon, but it sounds like I kind of had an idea of where all that was going, anyways. But
It's just a remediation type.
yeah, no,
I'm just not for remediation in general.
no, when you're licked. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not necessarily the fault of the processors that it's always so fucking expensive, to make these calls. But like,
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, if you paid your people well to begin with, not only would they care enough to like prevent these issues from happening as best as they can.
I don't see the
But-
point in spending $500,000 on an X-ray unit and not spending $500,000 on a better grow setup.
Yeah, or people that same amount in salaries, because I can tell you right now, if people are paid well, even if you fuck up, no one's stressed out because they got money in the fucking bank. You know what I mean? So like, it's easier to be accountable when the risk isn't homelessness.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, yeah, if everybody in that place is paid well enough to where, if they have to, forego pay just as a consequence of damn, we fucked it up, nobody gets paid, like, unfortunately, that's the plight of the dope grower, right? So, that is something that you realize, unfortunately, doing this, but
Sometimes you have to throw a crop out.
exactly, but
But a lot of these guys don't know how to do that, and that's the problem.
or they can't afford to. They literally can't afford to because they spent that money either on other shit or on the wrong people.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
I
also
have-
a thing. I never really viewed, as again, conversation, I never really thought that perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean that at the end of the day is that's where the problems will really get solved, because you know what usually happens in those situations? They fire everybody else and pay somebody a boatload of money to come in and maybe fix it.
I know.
It's like I've seen it before or something.
I've seen quite a few of these.
So,
Quite a few.
hell, I've been brought in myself to fucking places given thousands of bucks just to come in and make a couple adjustments. And then upon talking to some of the people in that place, they're like, dude, we've been saying that. He don't get along with so-and-so,
And
So,
that happens way too often, man.
and it sucks, because, I mean, you hate to see people's livelihoods get, kind of tossed to the wayside for, anything personal nonetheless, but especially over, like, avoidable issues that, I mean, with right management and resource management in general.
Could have prevented.
100%. Because, again, as a W-2 employee, if you had to wait, I mean, because Lord knows a lot of these facilities are on, a reasonable degree of perpetuality with their harvest, to where, you know, how long are we actually talking that you would have to forego any sort of payment? Truly half of a fucking cycle, if that, you know, a month maybe.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
That's where my thoughts are. You know, it's, dang, I missed a paycheck. So
yeah,
at the end of the day,
I guess I'll get it on the next one. I might as well throw this.
Well,
crop
yeah,
out
exactly,
and
because
fix
you know
this
what?
So that way it doesn't happen again.
now you
at
have
the
the
next
opportunity
crop.
to make it up in bonuses by fucking busting your ass and fucking actually fixing the fucking issue.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about y'all, but like that's how I'm motivated. If I'm helping somebody else make a boatload of money,
Yes.
there better be at least a carload of money for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree. There's a problem with the incentive structure within the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's everywhere, honestly.
Yeah,
not
and
even
it's not just
weed.
the cannabis industry.
Exactly.
It's an America's problem right now, and they got to fix it. There's been literal Harvard law but Harvard studies on like incentive systems, and I'm gonna encourage everyone to go look at them. There's one that's probably the best-selling one that I know it, and y'all should look at it. All I'm gonna say is that me personally, I am gonna make something in this industry, and it's gonna be something everyone's gonna want to be a part of.
Yep. Gotta be.
Yep. All right, man. Again, very much appreciate you for your time.
Absolutely.
It was great kicking with you. I'm sure we'll probably do another one in the future.
Hell yeah, you better.
Something like that. All right. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Later, y'all.